and also didn't see no less. So yeah.
Right. Hey, Dan, good to see you. It's been forever.
Likewise. I'm out.
Councilor Rosenthal, how's it going? Oh, you're muted.
It's a nice day. I'm happy to be here remote on my deck.
Oh, nice. Lucky you.
And so Vice Chair Pace, I'm waiting for just a couple more members here, so we'll have a quorum.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me know when it's go.
Yeah, the only problem with this wonderful spring weather is that grass grows very fast. You almost have to mow it twice a day.
It's excited for spring.
Yeah.
I'm excited for new grass, Garrett, because I had to do some treatment on some section of my backyard. So I'm looking forward to new grass growing. So
Well,
perspective.
yeah, perspective.
Nafisa, you're saying literally the neighbor's grass is greener on the other side of the fence? Sorry, I couldn't pass it up. I'm a terrible bad dad joke person.
Oh, I love that. That is oh my gosh, the best I've heard so far today. Thank you for that.
It's an early in the meeting. I might have another.
Oh, I'm sure you will. You're pretty funny.
You're allowed 2 per meeting, Mayor.
Well, that's one. And that was 2. Now that I've got my lunch scarfed down, I can join the meeting with video.
Yeah, we love to see you, sir.
How we doing, Stephen, on the quorum issue?
We are stuck at 5 right now, so I might suggest if we want to go ahead and get going, we might just go ahead and open up for public comment if we have any.
Okay.
And then we could maybe go ahead and jump to our first information item if our presenters would be ready for TriMet Safety and Security.
Item number 4. Yeah, is TriMet with us? Or Andrew and John, Sarah?
Hey, Mayor Pace, this is
Andrew,
John Sarah.
John's
Andrew
on.
is in the waiting room still, I believe.
Yeah.
He's ready when you all are.
Okay, great. I just don't want to jump until I clear the water, so. All right.
Okay, so with that, Chair, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and just ask if there's anyone who's online that wanted to provide public comment. We didn't receive any requests ahead of time.
Okay.
But if there's anyone who is online who would like to provide a comment, please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone.
Okay, great. And also wanted to let you know that Mayor Beatty is en route. And so she'll be calling in when she's back in service. She let me know that.
Thank
She's
you.
coming in or going to Bend. So she's waiting to get back into service. So we already did public comment. Item number 2, introductions and roll call.
Yeah, I thought we might come back to that when we
Want to come back to that? All
yeah,
right.
once we've got some more folks on.
So just zip down to 4. Going to information and discussion. We have the TriMet Safety and Security update. It's to receive an update about the safety and security measures TriMet is implementing throughout their system. And our presenters are Andrew Wilson and John Sarah from TriMet. Welcome, Andrew and John. Take it away.
Hey, thank you so much. Great to be here with you today. My name's Andrew Wilson. I'm the Chief Safety Officer and Executive Director of Safety Security here at TriMet. Thanks for giving us a moment. We just really wanted to get back in front of community members and leaders such as yourself with kind of some of the updates that we've done to our safety and security programs, kind of tell you where we're at and kind of where we're headed. So appreciate your time today, and we'll try to keep it brief, but give you a lot of good information in terms of some of the upgrades that we've been making over the last several years. So
great. And would you like questions during your presentation, or would you like us to hold them to the end?
I I think holding to the end might be good. That way I can kind of monitor time, if that's all right, Mayor Pace. But I could do either, so I'm flexible.
We can wait to the end. And so if anybody has any questions of Andrew or John, just make a note of that question and then we can ask it at the end, and that way they stay on track and on time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, we'll go to the next slide, please. That was a good slide, though. Give you kind of an update. So some of you may recall, but back in 2019 and 20, we entered into a reimagined public safety initiative brought on really by the community, but also by the Portland Police Bureau removing themselves from transit policing. So this has been very successful for us, which I'm going to talk you through kind of some of the gains that we've made, but we have 5 different types of personnel that are out of the system. We still do have transit police. In the lead position is the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. We do have members currently from Beaverton PD as well as Hillsborough PD. So thank you so much for committing those officers. They do great work in your communities every single day. I could give you some of their names, but I'll do that later, and then I'll ask them to thank me for putting them out there. But we really do have some great West Side officers, so we appreciate that support. We have transit security officers now out on the system. These are mostly Allied Universal officers. You'll see these in the yellow vests. These guys, folks do great work on our system and provide really more than anything, just presence and eyes and ears out on the system. We also have customer safety supervisors who do code enforcement. If you've ridden the system lately, we did have a 70% increase in fare enforcement over the last several months, which is getting a lot of very favorable feedback from the community. You might recall in the past, we had some challenges with our fare enforcement processes. So far, everybody is just clamoring for more of it, and it's seen as very non-discriminatory and safe for our community. So doing good work out there. You'll see these customer safety supervisors on buses and trains checking your fare, but also doing other code enforcement work as well. We have customer safety officers, which are additional security provided to our safety supervisors when they do fare enforcement work. So you'll see these folks in blue vests, and they're there really just to protect our customer safety supervisors as they enter trains, buses, and platforms and do code enforcement work. And then lastly, we have our safety response team. You will see these folks out there. There's 69 of them out there. We grew this as a pilot program back in 2021. This is an incredible team that carries elements for some of the most vulnerable folks that ride our system, like water bottles, Narcan, socks, granola bars, etc. They do work on the system and off the system. They'll go out to bus shelters and wake people and check in on them, but also on our system, really going after some of the most difficult things we've been dealing with related to behavioral health and mental health, drug abuse, and houselessness. And so these folks are part of our vulnerable populations team. If we go to the next slide, I'll kind of move us forward. This is a slide that we just put out there because we do want to let everyone know that post-COVID, mass transit in general, public transit has been dealing with things that we had not dealt with before. A lot of these things have to do with drug abuse, but also houselessness and mental health. A lot of high-profile incidents have been popping up at some of the biggest agencies. You might have read some of the struggles that the MTA has been having in New York. Sound Transit, LA Metro, and Baltimore. We just put this slide on here just to kind of let people know that there's a large number of issues that have been presented to public transit over the last 3 or 4 years, and in particular, but coming out of COVID. Now, we have been able to buck these trends. We've actually been doing very well, which I'll share with you, but just want you to know that this is not as much of a problem just specific to Portland as a lot of people think. Mass transit in general has been kind of reeling since COVID, down ridership and with increases in crime. So if we go to the next slide, this is our story, which is a very good one over the last 3 years. So these are just some fast stats from law enforcement. Keep in mind that transit police, we only have 22 of them currently, but when you call 911 and you're on the system, you're just like anybody standing on a city sidewalk. And so you get police dispatched to you, and it won't necessarily just be transit police. It could be Portland Police Bureau. It could be Hillsborough. It could be Beaverton, Tigard, others, just how BOAC dispatches to the train. But this is the all-in number of police dispatch calls for service. And you can see they've been trending downward now since 21, which was our peak. There's a total decline of 52%, which is really a great number. And our busiest call volumes are really that 7 a.m. and 4 to 10 p.m. period, which kind of coincides with our peak ridership. And so that's where you'll see a lot of the presence that we're pushing out there, is when our riders are out there, because that's when the most call volume occurs. But we do have 3 transit police precincts. One of them is in Beaverton, but we also have Clackamas Town Center and our central police precinct, which for transit, which is our public safety office, which is just directly north of the convention center downtown. And I'll talk a little bit about who's housed in that public safety office. It's not just transit police in a minute. But if we could go to the next slide. So some of our heaviest outcomes, you can see some pretty significant declines in the heaviest kind of crime areas like assault and robbery. This is all being helped by now more than 8,000 cameras that we have out on the system. We've been really moving up our surveillance units here. We have a surveillance team that works with local area law enforcement all the time using our camera systems to help solve crime. But we also now have a security operations center, which is 24 hours a day, which is located just adjacent to our operation command center. We opened that last October, and I'll talk a little bit about those outcomes as we proceed forward. The graph on the right, that is just last year's calls for police service. And so that preceding slide, you saw the overall trend lines. This is just last year. Q1 was really affected by our ice storm, where we didn't have a lot of riders or people on the system. So that really is that 9-day ice storm that we suffered through. But you can kind of see the amount of call volume that we've got coming in right now for dispatch calls for police service. And if we go to the next slide, again, this is just another way of looking at the priority level calls for police service. But you'll notice that non-emergency is now becoming higher than emergency level calls. That kind of tracks with what we've seen out on the system. A lot of the issues that we've had are more type 2 type crime is what the law enforcement calls. So again, things related to things like houselessness and drug use are some of the highest level calls. And so thankfully we have teams that can kind of address those, and we've been influencing some legislative fixes as well, which I'll talk about in a minute, related to things like drug use. But this is just a different way of looking at that same number. Next slide, please. I think, John, are you advancing the slides or no? Okay, there we go. Well, this is just thank you. I just want to point out kind of the increases of safety and security staff that we've been adding to the system. Again, there's our transit police division. We're back up to 22, although we do have some very promising commitments from the Portland Police Bureau and the Port of Portland. And so we're looking forward to having officers from both of those, hopefully in the next couple months. I saw somebody on here from the Port. If you can influence that, that would be fabulous. So anyway, there's your shameless plug. But we do want to get the Port back in, and I think we're actually on track, but we want to keep that on track. Transit security officers, again, this is the yellow allied. You'll see almost tripled the amount of those folks out on the system. So you see a lot more presence out on the system. We get good feedback from the community as they see more yellow vests out on platforms and on trains in particular. And there's our customer safety supervisor number. These are our code enforcers that do fare enforcement out on the system. And they're accompanying security teams, the customer safety officers, and then there's our safety response team, which is down to 69 today. That number fluctuates a bit, but we've got 70 on this slide. I also just point out that we have increased also our on-street customer service. These are our green vests. They're usually strategically placed during events. You'll see them like if you travel down to Providence Park and you watch a game or you watch a Something like the Foo Fighters and Green Day was in town recently. I don't know if you caught those, but you'll see a lot of green customer service out there doing wayfinding, but also providing a safety and security presence to be able to call in things as they see them. So some good trend lines there in terms of the amount of personnel dedicated to safety and security. Next slide, please. Thank you. So district attorney partnerships. We have a very good relationship with the Washington County District Attorney, but I do want to let you know that we have expanded our an actual contractual relationship with the DA's office in Multnomah County. We've had one DA assigned to transit for a number of years. We expanded that to 2 a couple years ago. We've also now added 2 DA investigators, which are ex-law enforcement folks to help them follow up on cases and put cases together for the DAs. So this is expanded last year. And this year, we're going to be adding a victim advocate to this program as well. And so these partnerships are very important to us. Our district attorneys, there's 2 of them, and the 2 DA investigators work right alongside our public safety office, right next to our surveillance room and our transit police. So they're putting together cases daily for our teams, but I will let you know that our surveillance teams work readily with other law enforcement in the area to help them with things that are not transit related, but that our cameras pick up, whether that's a bus, train, or a platform camera. Our platform cameras can all be reviewed in real time, and there's 3,000 of them. So you can imagine the type of things they're picking up and helping law enforcement with. As we get that out there, that word out there, we deal with more calls from law enforcement daily. But this is an important tool for our community. And so, and our district attorneys are a part of that as well. So it's producing some good outcomes. We'll go to the next slide. You might have seen our safe transit legislation. I was down in Salem several times recently testifying in support of Senate Bill 1553, which makes it a misdemeanor A if you're caught using drugs on a vehicle. We're trying to expand that to not just a vehicle, but back to what we initially asked the legislature for, which was our stations and platforms as well. So it's a higher level penalty if you're using drugs on the transit system. Last year, they gave us the vehicles, but they wanted HB 4002 to account for the public spaces, so our platforms. That is a misdemeanor B if you're using drugs on our stations and platforms, so currently. But we're trying to get that Senate Bill 1553, that misdemeanor A, applying to folks that also are caught on stations and platforms. Right now, if you're caught using drugs on a vehicle, a bus or a train, you will get a misdemeanor A, which could be up to 6 months in prison. That's probably not going to ever be the severest penalty, but it's a much stricter penalty. So we are using that alongside the Portland Police Bureau and our transit police in strategic missions to make sure we keep this off the system. Obviously, we don't want smoking of any kind on any of our systems, and that's always been that way. But with the introduction of more rampant drug use in the community, we saw that climb on transit, and we unfortunately cannot support that in any way, as I think you know. So we've got to work very hard as keeping that off. And so this was we were very thankful that the legislature gave us this additional tool last year, and we're trying to fully implement that on the system to create a safer outcome for everybody. Next slide, please. So this is just some of the technological advancements that we've been making recently. Obviously, we use hotspot data. We got a new security software in place that's very helpful to our dispatchers to be able to kind of understand where crime is occurring in real time, so we can dispatch our now almost 500 people to those locations. We're doing more public safety missions alongside not only transit police, but other area law enforcement opportunities that are presented from places like the Port or Beaverton. We will do missions alongside them with our transit police and our security teams to help increase safety. And I mentioned the strategic use of our security cameras. These are picking up things in real time that is really impacting law enforcement capabilities in our area in really very positive ways. If you end up talking with any of your local area law enforcement, I guarantee you that they've interacted with our surveillance teams to help them complete their cases. So very good. We do have real-time monitoring of our cameras too, as we built out our new security operations center. Again, I mentioned we opened that in October of last year. We've seen volume for calls continue to increase as people become more aware of it. The last slide on this presentation, I'll show you kind of how you as a rider can get in touch with our 24-hour security desk. If you're riding the system or on a platform, you see a security event, how you can get in touch with them. One of the ways you can get in touch with them is our blue light security phones, which you're starting to see. If you've driven along the Banfield lately or ridden the blue line out towards east, towards Gresham, you'll start to see these security stations out on the system. Those are going to be fully out to Cleveland on the blue line, our oldest segment in Gresham, by June, and we're going to be headed west side and south next. So you will see these in your area very shortly. And when you press the button on this security stanchion, it will connect directly to the Security Operations Center. So it's just another way of improving safety on stations and platforms out on the system and at transit centers. All of our buses now have operator safety panels. We did this over the last several years, and so you'll notice that our operators are now protected by kind of a sliding piece of glass that protects them from different types of abuse that they were experiencing, including spitting and throwing shakes and silly things that happen. That's been very helpful in protecting our operators, increasing safety. We are expanding our access control measures in key areas. This is something that's very innovative. Our grade separated platforms, including Sunset eventually in your area, will now start to have a key code. You can see the picture of it on here where you've got to actually prove that you're a rider to be able to access our elevator, because we're seeing lots of very difficult, nefarious activity in elevators, which made them unsafe and unusable for the people we built them for. Some of the most vulnerable in our populations that need the use of the elevator, and the elevators were filling up with bad activity. And so this allows us to be able to control that in real time, also viewing with our cameras and our dispatch folks in our 24-hour operations center that only people getting in and out of the elevators are paid riders. And so that's allowed us to really improve the conditions of our Hollywood elevator, where this has been in place for about a year now. We've been collecting data. It's been a very successful pilot in maintaining use, but also maintaining maintenance capabilities for our elevators, which are really influenced often by some nefarious activity. So you'll see this out in your area soon as we kind of roll this out to all the elevators. And of course, we do a lot of SEPTED work. We've still got some grants associated with that as well with the federal government. We're trying to plow through for obvious reasons, get that money spent down. But we're using things to improve SEPTED lighting and open areas, sightline distance, specifically to some of our oldest stations, but just to really improve what's out there. If you've gone to the Rose Quarter recently, you'll see kind of what we've been working on with SEPTED. It's like the flight deck of an aircraft carrier out there. If you're watching a Blazer game and you leave, it's just bright and it's very open. You'll see a lot of security personnel, and that's all by design. So it's very, very, it's a great safety outcome for us. And of course, there's also a couple blue light phones down there as well. So improving the safety dynamic. Next slide, please. Cleaning, one of the things I'll just mention to you all, we're battling a perception of safety issue as much as we're battling an actual safety outcome decision or focus point. We have been declining in overall incidents on crime and everything else. But if, a couple high profile incidents can really unsettle people. And so what we try to do is make our system as welcoming and as safe as possible. We want very visible presence. But one of the things that impacts people's perception of safety is just the cleanliness of the safety or the system. You've seen all this as you've been riding on buses or trains or platforms. If you see a bunch of debris strewn about, it makes you feel, obviously it's less inviting, but it also decreases your view of safety on the system. So a lot more enhanced cleaning out there. We've really leaned into some of the contracts that we have with folks downtown, PMMI and others to make sure pressure washing is occurring more regularly. The track systems are cleaned. And so hopefully as you get back on the system, you'll see some of these efforts, but there's a lot more cleaning, certainly more than in 2021, which is about the height for all of that as well. Next slide, please. So these are just some ongoing safety and security goals. I got one more slide after this, then I'll open it up for any questions you have. But we are expanding TriMet's overall security presence. We continue to do that. We have been providing increased de-escalation training for all frontline employees. That's been a very key goal of mine over the last couple of years. I've been working with some really incredible trainers on that. We're enhancing education on TriMet's rules for riding. At the same time, we're increasing code enforcement out there so that folks do know this is a paid fare system. You do have to pay fare, and that there's consequences to not doing that. And I mentioned also our continuing crime prevention through environmental design programs, which do include security camera upgrades. We're doing a lot more of that work out in the community as well and seeing some really favorable results. So if we go to the next slide. This is it. This is our last one. So this is just a way to get in touch directly with the Security Operations Center. Again, that's fully up and running, and you'll be able to reach personnel if you are out there on the system. If you want to pass this on to any of your constituents or anybody you talk with out in the community, I would just say that if you haven't been writing recently, in our fair survey work we've done, get way better marks from folks that are regular users than those that haven't ridden in a long time or ever. And partly that's because TriMet has been very different over the last year than we were 3 or 4 years ago at really the height of COVID and dealing with some of those very stark increases in some of the issues I mentioned before. And so hopefully you'll get back out there on the system and you'll see a difference, and it'll make you want to ride more. So I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions. I know I blew through a lot of information. This is part of a larger presentation that we do. We kind of truncated it down. So we've got any time you want for questions, I'm open.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Do we have any questions? Mayor Lueb.
Thank you for your presentation and all of the work that you're doing to make our transit system more safe. One of the things I just really wanted to note is a lot of the safety enhancements really seem to be focused on the TriMet Max. And there's a continued need to enhance safety on the buses, which is really what impacts Tigard more. Those bus drivers really need to be focused on driving and just to make sure that our buses are a continued focus to keep safe.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we do, by design somewhat, we have better safety outcomes on the bus than we did on the Max. But we've been kind of reorienting ourselves with the amount of personnel that we have. We have a lot more ground to cover with buses, 700 buses in 22-hour operation. But we've been moving our code enforcement teams, in particular our SRT teams, onto bus. So you'll hear that from your riders, particularly around transit centers. We have people getting on and boarding and getting off and checking on folks. But we do see that. And that's a continued area of focus, but it's a great point.
Thank you.
Mayor Wenzel.
Thank you, Chair. I joined a few minutes late, and so I hope you didn't answer my question and I just missed it. But I appreciate the advancements in safety and the intention on it. I'm just wondering, I think you're completely accurate when you say that the perception is that it's not safe. And oftentimes when I talk to people and I say, hey, I'm going to take the Max to do this, or because I'm out in Forest Grove, they're like, oh, it's so dangerous. So Mike, I have a few questions. My question is, how are you communicating with the public the efforts to increase safety so that we can change this perception? Because the people who do take public transportation from Forest Grove agree that it's safe, it's accessible, they're not really concerned. But my concern is that people, like, once you have a sour taste about something, it's really hard to undo that. And then just a few small questions. The phone number to report something, is that like on buses and on the Max, like a QR code where people can quickly just scan it and access it? And then same with, the cameras, like, are there signs like saying, hey, you are being videoed, like just kind of telling people like we are accountable and we know what's going on. So those are my few questions. Thank you for a very well done presentation.
Thank you. Great questions. So first off, getting the word out there, we are doing that. I've really been working alongside our public relations team to get the word out there in terms of the things that we've done to increase safety on the system. This is a part of that effort. But we have so much more work to do. And so just so you know, we've got several campaigns going to kind of get some more information out there. We have a, see something, say something campaign that we're working on. You will notice placards related to our Security Operations Center, our surveillance capability, as well as the 503-238 RIDE number. That's the plug that you could all call. If you call that number, the first toggle that mentions on the number, it will say press 9 for security, and you can get in touch with them directly. You could actually go to TriMet.org as well, and there's a shield on there that says security, and you can chat directly with them. And you can also text 238 RIDE and get connected. And those things are all explained on the placards. And so we're trying to get the word out there about the Security Operations Center in particular, so that when people see something that's making them feel uncomfortable, that they don't feel bad about just contacting security. So that is part of those efforts, but increased signage is something that is very connected to SEPTED as well. So we are doing that. I want to see more of it related to surveillance in particular. So we're working with our public relations teams on that. But great questions, and this is about getting the word out that we do have a safe and secure system. Things do happen on transit, just like they happen on city streets, et cetera. But I'll tell you all, and I can confidently say this to you, if you're going to commit a crime in the city of Portland or even in the metro area, this is the system that you will probably get more accountability on you, better chances for prosecution due to our DAs, our transit police contracts, as well as the incredible camera systems we have. We pick up things that people don't think we pick up. And so it holds others accountable. And so we want to get that message out in particular, that this is an area that will hold you accountable for things that are illegal, so.
Thank you. Councilor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to commend TriMet. Things have improved. It's noticeable, and I'm an occasional user, and I appreciate that. But my question is, as you know, there are certain events such as Blazers games and Thorns and Timbers games and so forth, where you have this massive crush of people. Does that pose special problems, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a great another great question. We have been really focused on, we have a group that's called the SETS team, which is a special events team, and they actually plan around events, but particularly events that are very large. So I mentioned the Foo Fighters and the Green Day concert. That was a Live Nation promotion. Those were at Providence Park. They were huge, a massive amount of people. You can hold far more people at Providence Park for a concert than you can at Moda Center. So it's great that we're actually on, the register of Live Nation now, because we can start to host big events. But with that, we want to make sure that everybody has a good, safe, secure experience on riding transit, not just us, but also the folks at Providence Park. So we've been working very closely together to increase, kind of really showcase what we've improved. We had, for both those concerts, we had transit police, our on-street customer safety supervisors, our own safety response team, as well as our security and the security from Providence Park. And I say that because some of this is partnerships. You'll notice a different dynamic at Pioneer Square right now, too. We are partnered with the Pioneer Square security team that is kind of patrolling that area. And so some of this is just building better strategic partnerships after COVID, but specific to events. This is why we focus so heavily on events, is because we have such an amount of people that don't normally use the system, and we want to be seen as safe. And so we overinvest our security from a promotional opportunity, from a safety security standpoint at events, Moda, Timbers, even some things that are out your way in Hillsborough, we've been adding to the SETS team as well. And I'm thinking about baseball games and things like that we've been working on too, because we do want people to use transit to get to those. And so that's part of that special event planning team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fye.
Thank you, Mayor Pace, and thank you, Andrew, for a great presentation. I join everyone who said this was a very well done presentation. 2 questions, and then I do want to take off the commission hat and ask a question as a constituent as well. But the first 2 questions is from the county. Obviously, safety and security are very important components for a sustainable transit system. We're curious how much of TriMet's budget is being dedicated to these safety and security measures, and whether that might be able to be reduced or whether that might be able to be reduced over time as needed. So that's one question, and I can pause and have you answered or Jen ask the second part question too. I don't know how
I'm
you want
tracking
to.
it. You can
Okay.
go to the next one, but I'll
Okay.
answer the first one too
Okay.
later.
Yeah, and then the second question is there a possibility to hire a contract for behavioral health staff to help address the significant mental health and drug use related issues?
Yeah, great questions. Our current budget, which is we're trying to look at some reductions on, is just over $80 million that we're spending. So it's a very significant budget for safety and security. Not all of that is security, but most of it, the vast majority is. I also run the safety department as well. That was a strategic investment by TriMet to make a safer system. We did have a budget when I took this role back in January of 22 that was just over $23 million. And so you can kind of see the amount of investment that we've made has been very, very considerable. But I'll tell you, anybody that rides our system, we've seen this in survey work, safety and security outcomes are usually near the very, very top. I mean, the time of on-time performance kind of related discussions are in there. But generally, if you're getting back on as a rider, you're feeling safer. That's what we're hearing loud and clear. And so as we build back riders, we recognize that we need to be spending money improving safety outcomes out on the system. In terms of behavioral health, we have our safety response team is connected in with several different behavioral health. I mean, they meet regularly with folks in the community to be able to do outreach services. That's really their primary goal, is to connect folks on the system in a vulnerable space that can get appropriate outreach in the community. We developed this team alongside Multnomah County Behavioral Health, who actually were on contract for a time. But the whole goal is that we have a outreach and referral team that's out there active on the system, connecting in with services in the area. So out in your area on the west side, our SRT manager and 2 assistant managers meet regularly with outreach services so that they can make really appropriate referrals for folks to those areas. One of the things that we've run into is we operate a lot more hours than the services that are available. So if it's 8 p.m. at night and somebody needs to get connected to services, there's nothing open. And so I think there is a kind of more of a society problem that we're kind of working on too, to be able to make sure that our mental health services, I don't think anybody would disagree, are lacking in this community. And we are definitely at the table trying to support those outcomes. But our safety response team is really a very effective way of connecting folks to services that are available in the community currently. But not sure if that answers your question completely, Commissioner Fye.
You did. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay.
And great job triaging both questions. Now I'm going to ask my next question as a constituent and put that hat on and bring a user experience here to this conversation and ask the question around the difference between transit and park and ride. Because recently I was trying to go to the zoo, and Beaverton Transit Center, it's not park and ride. Correct?
Well, you can park at the facility, Beaverton Transit, but I don't think it's actually classified as one of our park and rides. John, you might be able to. Do we have a park and ride that's actually at Beaverton Transit? I don't think we do.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, there were a lot of 10-minute parking lots, and I think but I just didn't. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe this goes to the communication part of it. I think I don't know how people differentiate that, but sort of that was a bit of a, from my own user experience and what I know about transit and accessibility, I assumed all transits were park and ride, and come to find out, I actually had to do a bit of a research on my end to say, oh, wait a minute, not all are, and then go to the Monaco is right there, so problem solved.
Yes.
Not to worry, but the recommendation that came from Mayor Wenzel, it's very well said, just something to add on to your communication to communicate that, because I'm a lifelong, I would categorize myself as a lifelong transit rider, but
Thank you.
I still
Yeah.
did not know that certain transit centers are not park and ride. It's sort of a connectivity hub.
Yeah, I raised 3 children on the east side out in Gresham with my wife, and so we've been using the system. Of course, I commuted downtown in a different role that I was in years ago, and I used the park and ride every single day for a couple years. And we have a lot more park and rides out that direction. We built earlier. I think we snatched up some of the property a little bit easier. But one of the things I'll just mention, and you'll hear about this in different presentations, but we are really focused on transit-oriented development here at TriMet as well, so that folks can access transit from a livable space nearby and perhaps even walk. But park and rides are one of those areas that we've seen a lot of declining use over the last several years with car theft and catalytic converter theft and those types of things. Again, perception of safety when parking for all day environments in different areas. But we've actually seen some pretty good increases related to usage and also kind of TOD kind of scenarios at some of those areas to try to use that for what they were intended for, was transit. So if people aren't going to be parking at them too, we want to try to figure out ways to increase transit options through those areas. The other thing we're doing lately with park and rides is looking into access control of park and rides. And so we're hopeful that, you have to prove that you're a rider to be able to enter the facility in some sort of prepaid scenario. This is really looking into the future, but that we can kind of control access to those park and ride facilities, which in the past were very open. And we could control access a little bit more like you can see downtown when you park. You have to go through a gate and you have to prove that you paid and those types of things. And so we're hopeful on that we can increase park and rides usage in the future that way.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. We have 2 more people who want to speak. I would ask for a commitment to brevity because I am watching time. Mayor Dalin.
Hey, thank you. Just a quick, Andrew, did you say you went from 8,000 down to 4,000 calls a year? Is that what I was seeing for service on the security?
Yeah, calls for police service. That first, we could pull the slide back up, but that first slide, it's a 52% reduction overall, and basically cut those in half. So we did see a peak of that 8,000 number in 21. And the reason I bring this up and I like this slide is there's a lot of people that rode in 2020 and 21 when commuters were commuting behavior was down. We were dealing with lots of things and not really prepared, I think, what we were on the other side of that. So it's a very different experience right now. I think we're not on the right slide though. Got to go to the, there it is. Yeah, that's it.
So that still has us over 10 calls for service per day. Is there anything you need from the cities for help?
Yeah, I would say, some of these calls are not high-level calls. I mean, some of these calls are to police services. This is what we find when the non-emergency is there's a person sleeping next to me who looks like they're rough, and I don't know if they're breathing. Can somebody come out and check on them? Those kind of non-emergent calls will still go into 911 sometimes. So I wouldn't see this as this is a robbery or an assault. If you go to the next slide, the heavy crime scenarios are much less, there's far fewer incidents of things like you can see here, robbery and assault and those types of things. I mean, that's a much less, so it's more the type 2 crime is what we're seeing calls for. But what we could use help for, honestly, giving us officers back to put into transit. We pay for those officers. And so if you work with your chiefs to have, folks re-enter the transit policing program, many of your agencies used to be in transit police if they aren't now. And we pay for those officers and they do work in your community around transit. So that's a very helpful commitment. But also just having a greater levels of law enforcement in the area as well. And I'm trying to stay on my commitment to brevity, so I'm going to shut up there. Sorry, Mayor.
And then the quick, so get those police back on it. I'll talk to my chief. What do you think it'd take to get to 0?
Well, access control is big for us. I'll just say this. We have a very open system, folks. When we built this back in the 80s and 90s, I lived here. I grew up in Portland. This is a very open system. If you go back to New York or all these other folks, they have better outcomes related to gate access fare enforcement. I'll just tell you one thing, and then I'll shut up. That New York, they don't even do fare enforcement on the system. The fare enforcement ends at the gate. So what they try to do is prevent you from gate hopping. Right. And then they might arrest you for something else, but they don't check fares on the system once you get beyond the gate, because that is their deterrent for fare. We don't have that. So we got to do a lot more work to check on people in a very open system where they can hop on at Pioneer. And, it's really hard to control. But we have some gate access opportunities, and we're pursuing those in certain areas like grade separated platforms. But that to get to zero, that is definitely going to be a part of it.
Thank you, Andrew. And John, you had a point?
Very, very briefly, just wanted to add a couple things to Andrew's comments. Commissioner Fye, if you go to our TriMet.org system map, that includes our interactive transportation map, there is a map setting where you can click park and rides, and it will show you every single park and ride on the entire system, and it's a very handy tool. I also wanted to address Mayor Wenzel's comments. And I think this is of interest to Mayor Lueb as well. We are undergoing a program where we will be adding unique QR codes to each one of our buses, trains, and platforms. That will allow folks to quickly scan a QR code, and it will allow them to either make a question, comment, or report a security concern immediately. And that unique QR code will be specific to the location or the bus or train that they are at. So that is underway, and we will have more information for you on that when it's ready. But you should see those QR codes rolling out in your community soon.
Thank you, John. I wanted to wrap us up on this topic. Thank you for the comparison of metro areas versus us and the downward trend of incidents. I really appreciate that. I used to work in the Hollywood district and take the Hollywood train or get off at that station. That was before the murder that happened out there. I stopped because of it. I stopped using because of it. And you heard us all. You've heard from electeds that the main reason or the main thing we've heard is safety. So I just want to say thanks to you, John and Andrew, and everyone else who heard us, because the improvements are pretty remarkable. I just wanted to congratulate you on that, especially on the reductions of assaults and robberies. Specifically at the Hollywood stop, I really appreciate the elevator security because it was more out of commission than it was in commission. And you obviously saw that across your system, so thank you. And I do agree with getting the safety word out. I agree with Mayor Wenzel. You asked us to share this with our constituents, and I will. I make that commitment to you about the improvements that you all have made on safety, and I will share that fact with my constituents, and I really appreciate the briefing.
Thank you all. And one last bit, we are building a security center at the Beaverton Round, right above Beaverton City Council out that direction. So you're going to see a lot more yellow vests in that area by design as well. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for your service to our community. We'll keep trying to keep all this stuff safe, and feel free to reach out to me. Thank you all. Great. Thanks, Andrew. All right. We're going to move on with the agenda, and we're going to back up to item number 2, introductions and roll call. Do we have any alternates attending on behalf of their member today? Going once, going twice. Okay, Stephen, can you please do a roll call to confirm attendance and quorum?
Happy to do that. Thank you. As usual, go in alphabetical order. For City of Banks, Mayor Kirk.
Here.
Thank you. City of Beaverton, Mayor Beatty.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Cornelius, Mayor Dalin.
Present.
Thank you. Durham, do we have Mayor Drake? I don't think we do. All right. For Forest Grove, Mayor Wenzel.
Here.
Thank you. Let's see. For Gaston, Mayor Martin, I don't believe is on. Keep an eye out. For City of Hillsborough, Mayor Pace.
Here.
Thank you. I don't believe we have a King City representative with us today either. For North Plains, do we have Mayor Goodwin or Councilor Figgy? Okay. I don't believe we have a Sherwood representative, Mayor Rosner. is not here. Okay. For Tigard, Mayor Lueb.
Here.
Thank you. Tualatin, Mayor Bubenik.
Present.
Thank you. Wilsonville, Mayor O'Neill.
Here.
Thank you. And last but not least, Commissioner Fye for Washington County.
Present.
Thank you. For our non-voting members, I believe I saw Councilor Rosenthal is on with us. Thank you. For ODOT, I saw Stephanie with us as well. Thank you. Dan for Port of Portland. And John, Sarah for TriMet.
Present.
Okay, have I missed anyone? Okay, thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Moving to the item number 3, action items. Are there any, considering the WCCC meeting summary for March 17th, are there any changes to the minutes? All right, can I get a motion to approve the meeting summary for the March 17th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay, so Mayor Wenzel made the motion and Mayor O'Neill seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any nays? Stephen, did you get what you needed on that?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Moving to item 4B, Metro Community Connector Transit Study. The purpose is to receive an update on the Community Connector Transit Study around developing the policy framework and the proposed opportunity area and mobility hub assessment methodologies and the planned engagement approach. I'd like to introduce Allie Holmquist to provide an update on Metro's Community Connector Transit Study.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me back to provide an update today. I am hoping to hear your thoughts on the role that's emerging for community connectors in the transit system of the region as we gear it up to identify additional opportunity areas. Particularly, I'm interested in hearing what outcomes you're hoping to see from the local service area and mobility hub location identification assessments that I'm going to describe in this presentation. Last fall, I did provide an introduction to the study, and I heard that from you that it was important to consider sub-regional needs outside of Portland in our more suburban areas of the region, and incorporating more engagement from local city representatives in the study process. And so I want to talk about how that fed into the work that we did to develop an emerging policy framework and our approach for completing the assessments. And then the next touch point that we've proposed is to report back on the outcomes of the work that I'm describing today as we start to talk about preliminary priorities. So first, what we did is we went back to what we heard during the last regional transportation plan work from agency partners and our community and business outreach. And we identified 4 key needs themes that we wanted to dive into a little bit more with best practices to explore solutions further. So those included looking at mobility solutions for low density areas in our suburban areas of the region and even our ex-urban areas, where there are not only neighborhoods where people live, but community places, local places that people want to get to. We also wanted to look at access to jobs, particularly thinking about industrial jobs, and also access to major outdoor recreation areas. And by now you're probably noticing a theme that all of these tend to be at our regional edges, and in some cases even beyond those. One additional theme that we looked at that was a little bit less about location was also looking at time of day needs. So thinking about, in particular, shift workers that have needs that are a little bit outside our typical peak span. And so we took these themes and we looked at best practices here in the region, including Ride Connection and others, as well as nationally. And there are a number of examples that you can see on the left of the slide here. And we explored if community connectors could meet these needs, if so, how they could be implemented to best meet those needs and what they would need to be successful. And from that work, a framework is emerging for how we can use community connectors as a tool for achieving our vision of an accessible transit system that's also frequent, convenient, and affordable. So that framework is that big, speedy light rail and rapid bus connect our centers that have the most activity, and then our workforce buses connect communities and destinations along arterials. And so then community connectors can link up with these other services to expand our network further into suburban areas and employment areas. And then where transit service does not exist today, at the edges in particular, they can act as local circulators between those neighborhoods and key community places. So what we're looking to do next is apply this framework to identify new community connector opportunity areas on our regional transportation plan transit vision map, and that's shown here on the slide. And we're looking at creating 3 different opportunity categories where there are opportunities for operating shuttles in the near term, areas where we do have plans for future transit service, but where a temporary shuttle sooner could build ridership for that service later, and then areas where we do anticipate a need for shuttles in the more distant future. And so to do that, we're asking 3 key questions that are really related to our regional transportation goals. So first, where are there needs, but where service does not reach today? And so we're looking at where there are key community destinations or clusters of housing a little bit beyond the reach of the network. Then we want to ask, of these areas, which are demonstrating a level of transit supportiveness? So looking a little bit at where there's some population density, some major draw sites like large employers, and then also thinking about equity focus areas where people may rely on transit but might have been pushed out of our more transit supportive core by patterns of gentrification. And then finally, asking, what does other regional work and local expertise tell us about markets? So we want to look a little bit at travel demand and think about mode shift opportunities, really rely on local and regional planning work that's already been done, and of course, turn to partner and community feedback. As we are planning for these connector shuttles to be thinking about linking existing transit, especially at sites where there's already links between transit like bus and the MAX, it will also be important to ensure these points have the space and features to make these connections in a way that's convenient and comfortable. And so mobility hubs not only are places where transit can link between each other, but also can link up with other first and last mile transportation options and wayfinding amenities, thinking about walking and bicycling routes for people to get to these hubs, other things that can make that more convenient, like bike lockers or rideshare. Thinking about stop and community amenities like covered and shaded waiting areas, public art, maybe even community gathering spaces that all can come together to create vibrant, people-centered places. And so these hubs will look different in scale and function in different places in the region, but will all contribute to an integrated transportation system. And so we're considering that alongside with current community character for an approach that really supports implementation in a way that's flexible to be considering unique community needs. And a couple examples of what these might look like. So a regional hub is very much what the Beaverton Transit Center is already doing today in bridging the gap between urban and suburban mobility needs. And then we're also thinking about more local and emerging hubs, something that the Tualatin Park and Ride or even Happy Valley is also playing today, where we're connecting local travel modes while supporting suburban employment districts, campuses, and medical centers. And so we're looking at identifying these hub locations where we're seeing a lot of that transit connectivity and first mile connections happening today or planned in the future. And then we're considering that along with accessibility, land use, equity, and community impact, along with transit-oriented development potential and opportunities for public-private partnership. There's some really great examples in other places where there's been some teaming up with some suburban shopping centers or medical centers to provide space for these mini hubs where bus and shuttles can meet up together. We're also going to be collecting more information on local and community needs to feed into the work that I just described. So we are engaging agency partners through advisory committees, both at Metro and through the county coordinating committees. We also have a working group of partners that is supporting the study. But actually this May, we're looking to engage a much broader group of local agency partners through a workshop to review the outcomes of the opportunity areas assessment. As far as public engagement, we have a survey out that we've been doing extensive noticing and cross-promoting to get the word out about. And then we're also actually out on the ground at tabling events, at community and tribal gatherings as well. And I just want to end with a reminder that we're one of the many implementation items happening between our last regional transportation plan update and the next one that's going to be starting next year. And so your feedback today will help us define the community connector framework, best meeting our regional goals, thinking about the recommendations that will come out of this study for guiding transportation investments in that next update of the regional transportation plan. So thank you very much again for having me today, and I will turn it back to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate that. Do we have any questions or comments for Allie? Mayor Dalin.
Hey, I'd be remiss to not cast the spirit of previous mayors by saying, hey, could you get us back on the map, please? In your slides, you cut off everything west of Hillsborough. No punch to paste there, but there is land west of Hillsborough.
I think it's a fair question.
Thank you.
Allie, did you want to respond or just nod and say yeah?
Absolutely. In our next touch point maps, we'll make sure that'll have the real data too, so that we have that shown on the slide. Thank you.
Yeah, and make sure you include Forest Grove so Mayor Wenzel doesn't ask you the same question next time. Mayor Bubenik.
Allie, just a question, and John and I had a discussion about this early in the week. I don't know if other communities are experiencing this. We've got some patients that are going through dialysis in the city of Tualatin, and Ride Connections had a cut in funds that limit their ability to get those folks to the dialysis facilities. They just don't have the amount of drivers that they used to, and they don't have the funding to support all the calls. And TriMet is, going to be able to supply some of these people lift connections. I just, on your equity and access that needs to be addressed, that funding cuts to organizations like Ride Connection that impact those people with medical required trips has to be, front and center, that these cuts have an impact, and that we can't lose sight of that, especially for equity and access. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bubenik. Allie, any comment? No?
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Okay. Great. John.
Thank you, Mayor Pace. And thanks, Allie, for all the hard work that you've done on this project. We certainly appreciate it. I did just want to flag for you and for this group that TriMet does continue to have some concerns about the expectations that this plan does set up. Funding for new additional transit is very limited right now, and we certainly expect that it will remain limited for the time being. And anything studied in this does not have a dedicated source of funding identified. So I do just want to flag that and make sure that as we are communicating this with the public and with our elected officials, that we're clear that this is a strategic plan and not something that has an identified source of funding at this time. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Mayor Wenzel.
Hi, thank you for using GroveLink as your photo. I'd be remiss if I didn't give some credit to former Mayor Pete Truex about GroveLink. So I would just like to, tell the group, like, GroveLink has been a huge addition and bonus and resource to the city of Forest Grove. And, to extend it out, now we have Cornelius Link, which gives our community members that, can go back and forth. I just think it's a good, and I would just also say that, when we look at this bus rapid transportation, this TV highway project, and losing stops, right, in Forest Grove for our only line, bus 57, how important GroveLink is. And then, also, I would like to echo Mayor Bubenek's comments about funding. And then, some people say, well, people can schedule rides, but I think public transportation is accessible. Like sometimes you just want to go to the store and pick up some food or go meet a friend at the park or whatever it is. So the thing I would like to see with community connectors is just like a little bit of flexibility. It would be really nice for people to be able to use a community connector and connect them all to get to a max line from the west side. So from Forest Grove, from Grove Link to Cornelius Link, and then to get to Hatfield Station would be amazing. I mean, I know funding's an issue, but I just would I think it would really add value to workforce. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Rosenthal. You're still muted, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Pace. Yeah, good presentation. Thank you, Allie. I've seen it before. I have a question. Recently, I was talked to by a member of the cab, owner of one of the cab companies, and they indicated that there was a lot of money being spent by the school districts to schlep students around for various special purposes or counseling or whatever needs. And I'm just wondering if we're coordinating with the school districts to see if that's an area where there might be some efficiencies or some changes in process. I'm just wondering if we're doing that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to cab drivers. I used to be one. So I'm not trying to get their business out of there, but I'm just wondering if that's an area we look at.
Thank you, Counselor. We have been coordinating with school districts, but more with the Safe Routes to School program coordinators. And that actually is something I haven't heard come up yet. So we'll explore that a little bit more. I know that TriMet does a lot of coordination with the school districts as well. So it will be good for us to get more of a handle on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Allie, I really appreciate you taking the time to prepare this briefing. Thank you very much. And thanks for the informative nature and just keeping us all informed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We're moving to item 4C now, the legislative update. And we're going to just hear what's going on with the Oregon Ledge session. And I'd like to introduce Carly Sylva-Gabrielson to provide an update on that. Carly, you with us?
We are promoting her up right now.
Thanks, Stephen.
Hey, Carly, if you're on, you're up now.
And just as Carly's getting on, I just wanted to let everybody know that she'll be talking about an initial, the focus is on the initial transportation funding package framework. So there's still a lot to go. This is not the final thing. So when you hear Carly briefing, it's not set in stone yet. So
thank you so much, Mayor. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to join you today. I am Carly Sylva-Gabrielson, one of the government relations managers at Washington County. And let me just share my screen and see if the tech will cooperate today. It's always interesting, isn't it? Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. So you should be able to see that screen share. And again, this is just a quick update on the state of affairs that we find ourselves now officially halfway through the legislative session. And I will flag, I'm seeing a typo on the slide. Clean Water Services is not a part of this presentation. This was a carryover from a previous presentation, so ignore that branding. So again, I just wanted to provide a snapshot of the legislative landscape. We are officially a little more than halfway through the session, which all government relations staffers and folks working in Salem are breathing a deep sigh of relief after we got through the first chamber deadline, which was on April 9th, so last week. That deadline marked the date in which bills needed to be scheduled for a work session in order to advance in the legislative session. And as many of you know, we started out this session with just over 3,400 bills that were introduced. Now that we made our way through the first deadline, we're now working with just over 17,060 bills. So still a lot of bills to track and to manage, but we were successful in killing a lot of bad bills, which was wonderful, and advancing some positive ones, and we'll definitely continue that work. I also wanted to flag that the target sine die does remain June 18th, but the constitutional sine die is June 29th, and as I think we're all expecting, will probably fall somewhere in between those two dates, probably a little bit closer to the constitutional sine die. I don't have a slide on this, but I'm sure many of you are reading in the news that there still is a lot of work yet to be done this legislative session. We have some really big issues that are out there, such as the budget, the education budget, revenue forecast that's going to be coming up next month, and the transportation package, which I'll talk about in a little while. I also just wanted to flag the second chamber deadline is coming up next month on the 9th. That's the deadline in which bills that were scheduled in the joint committees must have work sessions. So we'll see some more whittling and narrowing of bills over the next few months. Okay, next slide. Let's see. I also wanted to provide a snapshot of what's being referred to as Governor Kotek's housing initiative bills. These are being discussed as a collection of 3 bills, but you will see a fourth that's been added to the list, which is HB 2316. It's not technically one of the governor's bills. However, she has taken up a lot of interest in it. So we are anticipating that's going to be continued to receive her support and move forward. And while these are referred to as housing initiative bills, as we all know, these bills are land use bills, and they impact planning departments and local jurisdictions quite significantly. The first bill, 2318, is the big one that we hear about. It's the middle housing bill that would make a lot of changes to land use density and development type. And the most recent amendment is that it also directs counties and cities to permit a wider range of housing types on residential lots. And it also establishes new guidelines and deadlines for creating housing units. So it does have a lot of implications to local jurisdictions. And we did see that bill move forward with the due pass recommendation and move over to Ways and Means. One bill that is really wonderful for local jurisdictions is HB 3031, which creates the Housing Infrastructure Production Fund. It's a $100 million investment that will provide revenue opportunity for local governments through the form of grants, loans, and forgivable loans to fund infrastructure development, which is something that, as we all know, we desperately need. Something else that I wanted to flag is 2258, which did have a lot of changes from its original introduced text. The bill currently gives the Land Conservation and Development Commission the ability to require local governments to issue land use decisions on certain types of development. So really an overarching theme that we're seeing is that these bills are preempting local standards and asking planning departments and staff to do a lot with not a lot of runway to transition, as they're already adapting to bills that were passed recently. So we're doing a lot of really great work with a large coalition of folks led by AOC and LOC and others that are providing amendments and feedback to these bills, and really just trying to weigh in on what the pragmatic reality is of implementing these bills. And again, that last one, HB 2316, it's a really interesting bill, actually. So it essentially identifies state buildings and state land that can be identified for first-time homeowners. They're going to be called Home Start lands, and essentially it's going to create a random lottery system that will allow first-time home buyers to be given priority access to buy homes and lands at fair market prices. There will be restrictions, such as these folks need to live in the home for at least 5 years, and it's also going to provide a 5-year property tax exemption on the land value, but then we're expecting that land to move to the local taxation structure, with the tax benefits being available in 2034. Something else in that bill is that it does allow local governments to nominate eligible properties near urban areas. So it's a very interesting one to take a look at. And I'll also flag that the governor's office, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, posted online a map of the state lands and buildings inventory. So you can actually go on that map. I'll drop it in the chat after my presentation and look at your local jurisdiction and those areas that they've identified as possibly good for home start lands. Okay, next slide. I wanted to get a little bit into the transportation framework. I know that you all have heard a lot about this already, so I'm gonna, I think, click through some of these slides a little bit quicker, but I will also take some time for questions. One thing I do want to frame is that this is a framework. It is really merely a starting place. So we do expect that some of these numbers will be changing, but frankly, the recently released transportation package, it outlines several new revenue mechanisms and tax increases that are going to be funding our statewide transportation system with a really robust focus on operations, safety, and maintenance. As I said, this is just a starting place, so we are expecting the draft package to be released sometime next week. I would expect probably the end of next week, or maybe even spilling over. As we all know, these timelines do tend to shift. But we have been told that public hearing on the package will start to commence the end of April, probably the 28th, and spill over into the first week of May. So that's going to be a really great opportunity to raise your voice, to provide testimony in the form of written or verbal through your local jurisdictions to talk about the impact of these revenue sources. And I also will share that there is some conversation in the building that would be very beneficial to have testimony talking about how these numbers are a great starting place, but that this isn't enough. I think many of us were a little we were trying to be realists and a little maybe perhaps pessimistic about where the numbers could be, and we're pleasantly surprised when we did see the 1.9 per biennium with 1.7 going to the Highway Trust Fund. But there is definitely a need to hear from local jurisdictions that there's still more need, and there's still a lot more that we can really do with the state's funding and with our great taxpayer dollars. So just flagging that opportunity. Let's see. And I'll just click through the next few slides. So I know that we've all seen that there are some new mechanisms that are really intended to level the playing field, such as the new road user charge that will help ensure that electric and hybrid vehicles start paying their fair share into the system. It also will level the playing field by increasing the gas tax and increasing title and registration fees. And there's also a new 1% system user charge. It's not a sales tax, y'all, on every vehicle purchase. And just point of note, there has been some confusion in the press. This is on every vehicle purchase, private sales. So that will be caught at the registration point. There
Carly,
is also.
I don't think your slide advanced. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. Oh, thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
So that's a little bit clear. And so that new let's see, I wanted to say sales tax, but I'm not. The new system user charge is going to generate about $486 million per biennium. This is a really interesting revenue source because the lot of it is going to be dedicated to funding projects. As we all know, there are ongoing unfinished commitments from 2017 and some major projects across the state that would benefit our whole system of transit. So this new revenue source would provide about $250 million per year to complete those major projects. And then about another $236 million going to the State Highway Trust Fund. I can share that I think local jurisdiction lobbyists were really pleased with ourselves when we did see the robust funding going to the State Highway Trust Fund. There is a lot that our local jurisdictions can do with that money, but we all do need to be raising our voices and talking about how important that is, because as I said, these numbers could certainly change as negotiations move forward. So we want to hold that line and hopefully increase it if we can. I just wanted to provide the rollout for the road user charge, which is going to be very interesting and wonderful that Oregon, I think, is taking this step forward to modernize our system. let's see. We also are going to see an increase of the gas tax, which is going to be phased in starting with 8 cents by January of 2026, and then raising an additional 4 cents per gallon per year. Additionally, we'll see a 3% tax on tire purchases, which is going to go to fund salmon rehabilitation, wildlife crossings, and a few other things. And then also the road user fee for delivery vehicles, which is a new source, that will be implemented on fleets that have at least 10 medium duty vehicles. We don't yet know how much this is going to generate, so that's going to be interesting to see once implemented. And I know there was already some conversation, maybe on this meeting or another one, about the increase for transit, the increase to the state payroll tax, which I know we all were expecting and hoping to see higher than the 0.08%. I know I can be frank with this group that we do need to increase that number to maintain our system of transit and to ensure that Ride Connection and all these wonderful rural providers can maintain their great work. So there is a very strong team led by TriMet and our great coalition who is working in Salem to have those conversations. But again, just amplifying the conversations that have already been had, that lending your voice to increasing the STIF is really crucial, and doing so in the next week is really important. So thank you in advance for that work. And then just increase the title fees and car registration fees, like I know we all expected. And then just one last thing I wanted to flag is that the road user charge revenue is actually not factored into that 1.9 billion, 1.7 billion that we're seeing, because we just don't know what that's going to raise. So that revenue is going to be on top of what those numbers are. So that's really exciting. I'm hoping that that we do see that rounded out to higher numbers through that mechanism. And I just wanted to touch on the TV highway project from the lobbying kind of lens, and just let you all know that the GR Coalition on the ground in Salem is having a lot of really great conversations. We have been holding meetings with, again, the coalition of the lobbying table, which is made up by Metro, TriMet, myself with Washington County, and my great counterparts at Hillsborough and Beaverton. We actually had a meeting with Representative Helm this morning. So we've been having a lot of conversations with members of the Washington County delegation, as well as Ways and Means chairs, to talk about the project. And we do know that we're operating in a really difficult budget climate. However, we really think that this project has a lot of momentum to move forward, especially because local jurisdictions are putting our money where our mouth is, so to say, and that the delegation really realizes that it would be a transformational project to meet the needs of our communities today, but also into the future. So while I would say we are having a lot of hard conversations given the federal climate with budget and the statewide budget, the project is still certainly ongoing, and we're looking at hopefully an investment of lottery dollars to make that a reality and move forward. So thank you for all your great work on that behalf. And I also wanted to flag that we are having 2 legislative champions that are kind of coming to the forefront, Senator Campos and Representative Chaichi. So if you have an opportunity to see them and thank them for their kind of leadership on the project at this point in time, please do so. And then I'm just going to conclude with a little snapshot of the calendar that we're looking at. Like I said, our next big deadline is the 9th, in which bills have to pass the second chamber work session. And then we are going to be seeing the state revenue forecast on the 14th, which is going to set the tone and a lot of the momentum for the budget. And I think at that, I will conclude and take questions.
Carly, thanks so much for your presentation. Do we have any questions for her? Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pace. I have, well, first of all, a quick comment. The single purchase tax will raise about $85 million on new sales. So my question is, aren't they being awfully optimistic in terms of whether people can dodge that other one. The second question is equity issues regarding raising the registration fees by $156, I think it is almost doubling what we have, and we already have the highest registration fees in the country. I'm just wondering if there's an equity issue. And the third question really is, have all of these measures been looked at with a climate smart lens to evaluate what their climate impact is? In other words, what the overall impact on gasoline usage and highway usage is going to be.
Thank you so much for those questions, Mayor Rosenthal. Wonderful questions, and I do have to profess that many I do not have the answers to at this point in time, because as I said, this is just a starting point, and I do think that the committee co-chairs and legislative staff and legislative council are really analyzing these things right now, but I will say that the equity piece is something that I think is upon all of us to kind of raise our voices and highlight that there does need to be, especially with things like the registration fee, the title fee, and an equity dynamic in which ODOT can really maybe consider, where people are at in terms of their income level, or if they're on fixed Social Security, and work with them. So those details have yet to be availed, but we are expecting that they will be in the transportation framework, or not the framework, the package that is being fleshed out right now. So I look forward to maybe returning next month with more details on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor Dalin.
Hi, Carly, you're not going to fix it, but why are they waiting so long? I think when I was at the road show with them, all of the things that they're talking about implementing over the next 5 years, we should be implementing this year, right? We should be the EVs, all that, to what Garrett talked about, right? We need to have everybody paying in the system. But then the counterpoint to that is exactly what Garrett was talking about. How do we manage the equity of it, right? Because I have a transportation requirement community, right? We have a horrible jobs housing balance, and it requires everybody to drive to get to work on average 29 minutes. So if that's the average commute, we need to look at what we can do, because we're also an economically disadvantaged community. And I think that's where, when I've talked to our representative from our area, Susan McLean, looking at how they apply this into the income tax, right? So if you've got somebody that's not qualifying for a higher income tax level, how can we also hit them for increased registrations, pay by the mile, and all these things? Because I think we really need to look at how we do that, and adding new departments and ways to collect this stuff isn't efficient or effective. How do the income tax system we already have established? So I think they really need to look at that as the gateway into these things, right? So you just self-report, I drove this many miles, my car gets this many miles a gallon. Looks like I owe some more. I'm not going to get a refund this year. And then you can start to plan those. And the gas tax one, I would say the exact same thing, right? The gas has gone up 40 or 50 cents since the election, and we have no rioting in the streets. Nobody's burning down gas stations, yet we can't get the state to raise the gas tax or the feds to raise their portion of the gas tax. This is ridiculous. They need to get on with this program and stop stalling. So my 2 cents. Carly, thanks for taking the presentation. Thanks for giving me a venue to rant about this one more time.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And I think many who worked on the 2017 transportation package share your frustrations as they had deja vu having some of these similar conversations. So again, please do consider testifying in the form of written testimony or showing up in Salem or virtual. Happy to help facilitate that. But I think it's so important to hear both the need to move forward and modernize, but also do so in a way that doesn't leave some of our most vulnerable community members behind. So thank you so much for that.
Great. And thank you, Mayor Delane, for your 2 cents. It's better than the 8 cents that's going to go on the gas. So I appreciate that. Next question comes from Dan from Port of Portland.
Hi, Carly. Thank you for the presentation and for all the work you're doing in Salem. So as I think everybody knows, there was a lot of discussion in recent months about looking into accountability measures as part of a package, which was not really outlined in the framework that was released. Do you have a sense of when there will be updates on that front?
Yeah, really great question, Dan. We have been told that we should see something in the form of ODOT accountability framework in the next month. I don't know what that looks like. I don't think really anyone does, but conversations in the building indicate that the co-chairs are willing to look at efficiency measures within ODOT. And if there are programs that need to be eliminated or combined, that they are willing to make those hard choices. So there is I believe it's a team of 2 or 3 outside consultants that have been going through the books at ODOT, and I have heard are doing a really great job, being very diligent. So I do think that we'll be seeing some proposals, and I do know that there is major collective momentum within the building in Salem and also within the public sphere for accountability as we ask the public to step up and make more investments. So that's going to be crucial.
Thank you, Carly. Appreciate the briefing. Any other questions? Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor Pace, and reach out
Yeah.
with questions anytime.
Awesome. Thank you again. Really appreciate it. Oh, Carly, I want to remind you to send out the map of home start lands. You said you were going to pop it in the chat. So just a friendly.
I'll do that now. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So Carly, heads up, we don't have a chat activated, but if you'll send it to Teresa Gartner, we'll have her email it out. And then if you can share with Teresa your PowerPoint, we'll make sure that gets uploaded to the agenda packet too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for the reminder that we do not engage chat, or we're not doing that today, at least. Moving to item 4D as in Delta Regional Committee updates and discussion. I'd like to introduce our JPACT representatives. That's what we're going to be talking about first. Mayor Dalin, Mayor Lueb, and Commissioner Fye to discuss the April 17th JPACT agenda. If this is news to you, let me know.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No. Nafisa, do you want to go first? You want me to on JPAC?
Go ahead, Mayor. You go first, and then if you miss anything, I'll smack your
Go back,
hand
clean up.
and
Thank you. Hey, usual stuff, right? 7:30. It's supposed to be virtual this Thursday, so we're going to be much more climate smart, not all drive to Portland from all over the area. Obviously, updates from the chair, and then in the consent agenda, we didn't think there was a lot of heat and bluster about the updates that were going to be there. Basically, there's MTIP amendments, pretty standard stuff. If anyone has questions or comments, let me know, but I wasn't sweating any of that particular topic. The Unified Work Plan has a couple updates, mostly adjustments and then acceptance of the minutes from last month, which all seemed to be pretty accurate when I read through those. And then we've got the 28 for open information discussion, the 2830 regional flexible funds update on the 1A.1 and step 2 public testimony opportunity. So that's basically for public comment there at the meeting to give us feedback. And then we also have a public hearing for the regional flexible funds, step 1A and step 2. And then basically an update on the TV highway, one near and dear to our hearts, the TV highway LPA update. And that's the agenda topics I am aware of. Nafisa, did you want to chime in on anything else or try to get feedback from anybody here on questions or concerns?
You did a phenomenal job. Did you mention the Federal Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill?
Yeah, and that's just kind of basically part of the stuff they're going to fast track through there because it's
regional priorities. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all based on work that we've already discussed and milled over for 45 meetings, it seems like.
Yeah, I still stand by that statement. You did a phenomenal job.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any questions from the rest of the group?
Yeah.
Comments?
Yeah. Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you very much, Mayor Dalin. I appreciate it. And Commissioner Fye. Moving to MPAC. MPAC will meet on April 23rd and the meeting agenda is not out yet. And then next up is the R1 Act, which met on April 7th. And I'll hand it over to Mayor Lueb, Mayor Wenzel, and Mayor Bubenik.
Thank you, Mayor Pace. I think Mayor Lueb had to drop the call.
Okay.
So I think Frank and I will just cover it. And I'll start and then Mayor Bubinek can correct me. But so we had an update about the Rose Quarter project. They have it divided into 2 phases. Phase 1A will start summer of 2025. And then the next phase will be 2027. Oh, and I might have to go sooner because you might have heard my school bell ring and my class is going to walk in. But I just want to say, much like every other project, transportation project in the state of Oregon, there's still a huge funding shortage. And so there's just like this gap of, and like, how are they going to fund this? The presenter was like pretty confident they'd figure out a way because, the community, that live in this neighborhood really deserve this project. And it's really important. Sorry, they're like, can we come in? It's unlocked. Okay, whatever. They're not coming. Okay, one more thing. Oh, actually, do you guys mind, Frank, do you have it? Do you mind if I go teach my class? For those who don't know, I'm an 8th grade middle school teacher, so I have it like banging on my door right now.
All right.
Peace out. Thank you,
Thank you,
Frank.
Mayor Wenzel.
Okay, bye y'all.
Bye-bye. So picking up for Mayor Wenzel, 2 big questions were, will the community around the Rose Quarter be involved in these phases? And especially phase 2. Phase 1 this summer is minor things, dealing with some sewer and some land around I-5, but not the one that's controversial, the one that's more expensive. That's the one they're talking about in 2027. It was the new lead of the Urban Mobility Office is Tiffany Penson. She gave the presentation. And like Mayor Winston said, they're pretty confident that they're going to get this done, and she's very committed to having the community around the project be involved in this one. The next presentation was particularly interesting for me. It's the bus on shoulder for 205 that Ride Connection is going to start. They're going to have, when this is up and running, it'll run between Wilsonville and Oregon City. It will have, hourly service most of the day. Ideally, sometimes maybe every half hour, but people are pretty excited with the ridership that's projected. The construction, they got a little construction on 205 to make it feasible, but really looking forward to having this connection on 205 to get people on this side of, basically the east-west connectivity we really don't have in the southern part of the metro region. And finally, ODOT gave their capital investment plan, which, sometimes can be mind-numbing. What the things they have planned, the budgetary restrictions, but they're going to be changing their phasing to have shorter time periods, and they're going to start shifting that in the next year or so. So they're not changing the goals or the projects they're having. They're shifting the timelines of when they're going to get done. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions? Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry. It wasn't Ride Connection, it's Smart. Got Ride Connection in my mind. Smart is running the bus on shoulder on 205, not Ride Connection.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Just hold 1 second. Okay. Moving over to item number 5, other business and agency updates, and we're at the end of our meeting. So due to the Juneteenth holiday falling on a Thursday this year, the June 19th JPACT meeting will be moved to June 12th, just FYI. And this means that the WCCC meeting will also need to move up a week to June 9th. So please change your calendars. Again, this meeting, the WCCC meeting, will move up to June 9th. And then changing topics a little bit to the potential Washington County Day in DC. As you've heard, Metro would like attendance for this year's JPAC trip to Washington, DC in September. And it will be limited to JPAC member or alternate only, plus staff, which is, so we're talking about Mayor Dalin and Mayor Lueb. Washington County has typically hosted a Washington County Day in DC. at the end of the JPAC trip to meet with our Washington County congressional delegation. And all of our mayors who have attended have typically also participated in all the JPACT events. So I'd like to turn it over to Stephen, Jessica, and Aaron to lead a discussion about whether we should still plan and participate on Washington County Day in September. So take it away, Stephen, Jessica,
Thank you.
and Aaron.
Yeah, and I'm actually just going to turn to Aaron. I think is going to lead the conversation. So thanks for joining us, Aaron. Oh, you're muted.
Did I not unmute?
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Okay. I hit the button and I just kept talking. Good afternoon, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Erin Doyle, the Senior Government Relations Manager in Washington County. I use she, her pronouns. We, as was stated, have traditionally had many of you come to the JPAC trip, be in the room when we do the JPACT official meetings, both with delegations and with advocacy organizations and USDOT. This year, because of all the things, I'm just going to summarize it that way, all the things, Metro has declared that their preference would be to just have JPACT folks, the actual sitting committee members, there for the JPACT scheduled days. This does not necessarily preclude us from doing a Washington County Day. At the end of it, we can still put that packet of meetings together, but that is only if mayors want to fly out, or representatives from your individual jurisdictions want to fly out separately or be there and do other things and then come join us for that third and final day. We can set an agenda. I can work with our federal lobby team to get those meetings scheduled if it's your preference to do that. We can then expand the topics we want to talk about, but we would once again need to be focused on what it is that we can speak to with one voice as a county geography, not county agency, and have those meetings separately held to either reaffirm the JPACT agenda or speak specifically to what's going on in your Washington County mindsets about transportation, housing, land use, all the fun things you all do as a WCCC. At this point in time, it's a question of best use of time and money, I think, for you folks as you contemplate this decision about whether flying out for one day to talk with our congressional delegation in September, when they're allegedly going to be focused on the budget and a possible surface transportation reauthorization package, where we can speak to what it is that we all want to see out of that, is worth your time and city resources. With that, I don't know if I introed that with enough caveats or anything, but happy to talk through this with you all to figure out where you would like to be and how you would like Washington County to work with all of you for a day in September, if at all.
Thank you, Aaron. Any comments or questions of Aaron or points that we want to bring up? Mayor Beatty.
I mean, this is going to be shocking to most that even if Aaron had positive things to say, you really sold the trip, Aaron. I would say it is not worth our effort to go in coordination with JPAC. Particularly, I just was in DC. I just met with Department of Transportation. Like, I personally don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, particularly given that the U.S. Conference of Mayors continues to put out that they're still finding ways to punish sanctuary states. So I'd rather keep my money than go spend a day in DC.
Thank you, Mayor Beatty. Any other comments? I think that kind of sums it up. You totally sold it, Aaron.
So I'll
Okay.
be sending around a collection pot to fund me. My responsibility is JPAC. You could I'll get the GoFundMe set up so you can send your city's contributions, since apparently I'm taking the stick for the team.
Yeah, you are.
I did talk to Mayor Lueb already. We talked after JPAC last month, and I don't think she was planning. She may have changed her mind, but when her and I talked, I don't think her staff was planning to go as the alternates. So I think I'm planning to go. I think my city manager is planning to go. That's kind of our attendance list right now, Aaron, from the Washington County cities. Is there any other staff that we think we need to send? Beach, is there somebody from your staff that you think you need to send or go?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. And I think the other thing I'd say, Aaron, is some of the best times that we've had county days or coordinations have almost been completely not worrying about the JPAC topics. We've basically already had those discussions with our congressional members when we're back there representing JPAC. I think we talked about the dam, do we raise the dam? What do we do there? Those kind of topics that are countywide significance, but we think are best served by discussing with our representatives back there, maybe getting their staff aligned with that discussion for their back there staff. I think those are some of the good topics that we've touched on in the past. Just rehashing the JPAC information is of little consequence or benefit, and actually probably also almost opens us up for more chance of saying the wrong thing and diverting the message.
Sorry to jump in here on this, because I do think it's important to what you just said. When I met with Jeff Merkley last month about Beaverton's priorities, he did ask me about the dam specifically. So you might want to get prepared that he's going to ask you the same question as well.
Thanks. I will tell another agency that is more directly engaged with dam issues.
Feels right to say it that way, doesn't it?
It's just sometimes when I just say negative things, I got to make a joke in the meantime.
No, but I think that, Mayor Beatty, that's a good point, right? What are on the short list of things that we think we need to be discussing, because we've already had discussions with our federal contingency and contingent, and also what do we think we want to bring up? Is there anything new for Washington County specific? And if I'm already back there, I've already rode the plane, I got to ride it back, I've already got a room. I think that would be good for us to have maybe a working session about what we want to put together as those topics. So if it's going to be me and Peter back there representing Washington County, maybe, and Aaron's probably going to already be there, I think, during the trip. What do we want to have? It might be easier and better to have a small focused discussion with the representatives since we're already there, and if there's stuff from the cities. Thank you.
I am happy to help put that conversation together. I believe Commissioner Fye will also be in attendance, but I'm just making a presumption here. Yes, I do plan to go back as part of the JPAC trip, but also happy to set up a smaller Washington County Day. We can focus on other things. I would also put like CDBG on the list and a couple of other important countywide topics where choices impact both cities and the county overall that are not JPAC related.
Yep. Courthouse, clean water, all those big things that are countywide, but not specific.
I try not to talk about water as much as possible because I can only muddy them.
I gave you, did it?
Nice.
Just please don't stay at the Ritz and stay at a Hilton like everyone else, and you will be all right.
I search for government rate and near the Capitol, so I limit our travel transportations inside the city costs, and I walk pretty much everywhere. So I think, I make everyone else walk with me. So
nice. So just avoid that first class ticket, and you'll be okay, Aaron. Yeah.
I'll see the Hilton and raise you the actual place where I stay, the Harrington, which is like the cheapest place, but you do have to share breakfast with the students downstairs because it's where every school takes their kids when they go to DC.
Ooh.
Just so we're clear, we're off topic.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments? All right, Stephen, anything else that you want to say before I wrap it up?
I do want to just remind folks, you mentioned it earlier, but we will be changing our June meeting date to June 9th. So I think Teresa Gartner either has or will be getting that calendar appointment updated on your calendars. So June 9th for next month. And I think that's all I had.
Excellent. Thanks to all of you for attending today. Enjoy the amazing weather and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.